And there was some,
Those days you were doing the gigging around LA. You had Motley Crue opening for you at the Roxy.
that was weird.
You did a few shows with Van Halen. That was before they put their debut album out. That was the back end of the 70s. What do you remember about being on a stage or in the vicinity of where they were before they made it big? I mean, did you look at them from the side of the stage and go, wow, they're going to make it? This guy is something else.
Absolutely. I remember the first time we played with them was in Redondo Beach, and it was a huge club that nobody remembers. It held like 1,000 people. It was called the Smokestack because it was next to a processing plant that had huge smokestacks. And the guy had come from Canada and built this really state of the art club in Redondo. And, I was always bugging him that I wanted to play there. And that was the first time we played with Van Halen. And I saw myself as a pretty competent guitar player then. I was the singer and a guitar player and a lead guitar player. But I remember it's like people say, what do you remember? Do you remember the day you heard that Kennedy was shot, or the towers being, planes crashing? You remember 9/11? But I remember that gig, and I'd heard about Van Halen. I hadn't played with them yet. I hadn't seen them. They hadn't made a record yet. And I just remember that moment was upstairs in the dressing room, and I heard them start to play. And then I said to Juan, I said, I thought they only had one guitar player, because to me it sounded like there was two guitar players. And I remember walking out on the balcony and looking down at them and seeing this flamboyant singer, flamboyant clothes, and I see Eddie doing that two hands on the neck thing. And I was awestruck. I was godsmacked. And I think that moment I mulled about it and I thought, I don't know, doesn't matter how much I practice, I will never be as good as Eddie Van Halen. And, he was a genius and I miss him. And I think at that moment, I realized I should probably start concentrating on being a singer more, because I can't compete with someone like that. He was a genius. And I remember that moment. And then, of course, we went on to play with them many times at the Whiskey and the Starwood and all these other places. But that show, the first time I ever saw them, first of all, I was blown away by Eddie. Second of all, I was blown away by David Lee Roth, because he was so flamboyant and gregarious, and you know how he is. Everybody knows how David is.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
He David's David. I always say, he got when they got famous, how he was. And I said he was like that before he got famous. He was always kind of very, outspoken.
Did you have the same? Did you have the same feeling when you were working with Motley Crue, when you had them opening for you? Did you have a similar feeling that this is going to be another huge band?
Not really. I remember the only time we played with them, I think, it's the only time, was at they were showcasing at the what's the name of the club right next to the Rainbow, the Roxy.
Roxy.
And we kind of laughed because, and we were showcasing, and all the labels were there, and here our equipment is torn and tattered, and the fabric's falling off. The drums are like taped together. Our equipment was crap. And when they rolled in with all this brand new equipment and drums and the clothes and flamboyant and the makeup and the hair, I thought, wow, how'd they afford this? They weren't signed. And then I remember their EP, I think it was called Too Fast for Love, or I think it was like a 4 or 5 song EP they put out. But I didn't really have an opinion about these guys are going to be big, huge. The only band I've ever played with that I knew immediately, even though I saw them when they were playing clubs, when we did the stadium tour, and Metallica was going on before us. And they were kind of the reason that maybe that Dokken started falling apart, because Metallica would go on stage every day. And to me, it was like they played every show like it's going to be their last show, and they don't care if they drop dead on stage. They just were like over the top, 100% energy. They just were really,
Mm.
really in it. They were popular in Europe and that, but they hadn't broken out because they hadn't done the Black Album. And
Yeah, for sure.
now
Yeah.
that they are the biggest band in the world, and I said that, and we had the same managers, and I kept telling my manager Cliff Bernstein, I said, I know we may be more famous than them, and we're making more money than them, but can they go on after us? Because they were killing me. They were killing us, And we'd already been on the road for a year. We'd already done a world tour, and we were pretty worn out, but it was
This,
frustrating. I couldn't talk to the band. I said, guys, look at Metallica, man. They're just crushing it. And I think we got too full of ourselves and too cocky because we'd had a couple platinum records and done world tours with AC/DC, but they got complacent in my opinion.